All right, so today's lesson is about special lines, and we're going to do two lessons today on special lines. And the first one is going to be on vertical and horizontal lines. So remember last class when I was giving you your homework and I highlighted a question that I said would be a little bit challenging? Well, that question was, I believe X is equal to something. And the reason it was challenging is because we haven't learned how to do it yet. It's called a vertical line. So after today's lesson, you should be able to do that question a lot more easily. Okay, let's talk about, and I don't think you have this diagram, but like always, I'm going to post it after we're done. Let's first talk about what these different lines mean. So a line that goes up and down is called a vertical line. And a line that goes side to side is called a horizontal line. An easy way to remember that is think about like when you go see a sunset on a horizon. Okay, watch out for this artistic ability right here. When you go see the sunset at a beach and you're looking at the horizon, horizontal, think of it going side to side. Okay, now there are a couple of rules, but I have a very creative trick to help you remember them. So the acronyms I need you to remember are VOX and HOY. And yes, they sound hilarious, but remembering this will always help you remember what's happening. Yeah, I almost think of it as like a German word, like Wuchs and Hoi. I don't know. Every time I say the word Wuchs, I always think of like a Volkswagen for some reason. However you want to remember it, it's up to you. All right, so what exactly does this word mean? Well, the V stands for vertical lines. The U tells me about the slope. So do you remember when we were talking about slope way back in the day? And I'll actually just bring up that lesson to help you guys remember what we were talking about. It was this one right here. So if I scroll down, remember how we talked about the different types of slopes? So we have a positive slope here, a negative slope here. And then if you have a horizontal line, that slope is 0. And if you have a vertical line, that slope is undefined. And in fact, we even proved that to ourselves when we did our calculations. I know this was a long time ago, so maybe you won't remember quite as much, but we graphed a horizontal line, we did the calculation, and we realized that the slope of every horizontal line is 0. Then we graphed a vertical line, we did the calculations, and we ended up getting something undefined. And how do you get something undefined? It's when you have a number over 0. Okay, and this just means that the slope is undefined. So really, we have learned parts of this before. You may just not remember right now. All right, so going back to this, we have V that stands for vertical lines. U tells us that vertical lines have an undefined slope. And the X part helps us figure out what the equation is going to be. So let me explain that using this diagram. See how this vertical line is going through the X-axis? And do you notice that it's going through the X-axis at the number -2? So the equation of this line would just be X is equal to -2. You just look at what axis the line is passing through, either X or Y. In this case, it's the X-axis, right? Because this is the X-axis. And then you just read off the number. So the generic formula is X is always going to be equal to a number when you're talking about vertical lines. Every vertical line is going to have an equation where it's X is equal to something. All right, and like always, we're going to do a bunch of practice questions that are going to help us understand this concept. Now let's go over to HOY. HOY stands for H is for horizontal lines. We know horizontal lines have a 0 slope. So this is actually not the letter 0. It's actually it's not the letter O. It's actually the number 0. It tells me it's a 0 slope. And let's figure out the equation of horizontal lines. See how this horizontal line is going through the y-axis? It's going through this axis right here, and it's going through it at the number 3. So the way we would describe it is y is equal to 3. And in fact, every single horizontal line in the world is going to have an equation where it's going to start with y. Y is equal to something. Now, a little bit another piece of information that's kind of cool is vertical lines are parallel to the y-axis. And we're going to talk about what the word parallel means, but you may remember it from when you were younger. So if I were to show you, or if I were to prove that to you, this is what it would look like. This is my y-axis, and the red line is my vertical line. So you can see that both of these lines have this, will never ever cross, and parallel lines don't cross. They don't meet. Okay, so that's why it's said that vertical lines are parallel to the y-axis. How about horizontal lines? Well, let's take a look at it. You have your horizontal line in blue, and look at the x-axis. I don't need to draw it. I need to do this. Look at the x-axis. You're going to notice that both of the x-axis and the horizontal line are parallel to each other. So that's why we say the horizontal lines are parallel to the x-axis and vertical lines are parallel to the y-axis. All right, now we have this picture, and I know you have this in your handout, so now we can do this question together. We are going to be trying to figure out all of the information of these various lines. I've highlighted actually, I didn't do the colors properly. What did I have over here? I made all the vertical lines. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be a color code to this. I wish I had done that, but whatever. Let's start with line number 1. It's this red line over here. So feel free to use the chat just so you can participate as well. What kind of line is line number 1? Is it a horizontal line or is it a vertical line? Line number 1, which is red. You can just go ahead and write it in the chat. Horizontal is correct. So I'm just going to write the letter H for that. Whoa, 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 what just happened? Oh, that just happened. Okay, so this is a horizontal line, yeah. And what is the slope of a horizontal line? I will remind you of our little acronyms that we're supposed to remember: VOX and HOI. So what do you guys think is the slope of a horizontal line? It's going to be 0. And what would be the equation of this line? So look, it's going through which axis, X or Y? Yep, it's going to be -8, and it's going through the x-axis. So we would just write x is equal to -8. Good. Let's try line number 2. So line number 2, we have this one right here. It's also, it looks like this. So is this a horizontal line or a vertical line? It is horizontal. Why is the slope 0 again? Every horizontal line has a 0 slope and every vertical line has an undefined slope. And just take a look at that sheet that we did, because we did the calculation for it and we proved it there. But for now, you just need to know those facts. Okay, so we know horizontal lines have a 0 slope or undefined. I want to hear more. I want to see more people typing. It's easy to participate when you're typing. So line 2, is it a 0 slope or is it undefined? Thanks, Javens. Anyone else? Thanks, Julia. 0, and then the equation is going to be, go ahead and write the equation in the chat as well. Yep, 3, but don't forget, you need to write either an X or a Y. So what are we going to put in front of it? Thanks, Julia. It's going to be X is equal to 3. Excellent. All right, let's keep going. The next question is line 3. That is a horizontal line or vertical line? Vertical, and is the slope 0 or undefined? Thanks, Sienna. It is going to be undefined. And what would be the equation of line 3? Wait a minute. You guys, sorry, we have been doing this wrong, and I don't know how I didn't catch that. Let's go back to line number 1. Line number 1 is a horizontal line. it's going through the y-axis. So if we go back to line 1, is it supposed to be x is, I'm sorry, I didn't even catch that. Is it supposed to be x is equal to -8 or y is equal to -8? Yeah, this should have been y. I think some of you are probably there confused, being like, oh, it's the wrong thing. Let's go back to line number 2. Is that supposed to be, so line number 2 is going through the y-axis at 3. So this should have also been y is equal to 3. There we go. Now we're not so confused anymore. Okay, now we can go ahead and figure out our VOOCs. So vertical line, undefined. We're talking about line number 3 over here. It's going through the x-axis at the number 7. So this is going to be x is equal to 7. Yes, my apologies for misleading you guys. And now let's do the last one. Line 4 is a vertical line. Okay, let's just get that a little bit thicker. It has what kind of slope? 0 or undefined? Yep, thanks, Javint. It's going to be undefined. And someone tell me what the equation is going to be. Figure out which axis it's going through and what number it's going through. Yep, thanks, Javin. Thanks, Nasheed. It's going to be x is equal to -6. And now you can very clearly see that every h has the HOY, H-O-Y, H-O-Y, and every vertical line has the VOOCs, V-U-X, V-U-X. So the acronyms do work, but I didn't catch it in line 1 and 2. It's okay, we corrected our mistake. All right, let's do a couple more questions. So I will go ahead and write those special acronyms at the top, VOOCs and HOY. Question number 1, state whether the given equation describes a vertical line, a horizontal line, or an oblique line. How can we figure that out? Well, every vertical line is going to just have the letter X. I'm wondering why all these pens are so not thick. Like, who changed my settings? Every horizontal line will have Y. And you know what an oblique line is? An oblique line is something that is diagonal. So these are oblique lines. And how do you identify them? Well, they have an X and a Y in the equation. So given this information, let's try and figure out what all of our different lines would be. Question number 1, x minus 5 is equal to 0. So what do you guys think? You can write V for horizontal, V for vertical, H for horizontal, or O for oblique. It has only the letter X. And so it must be, Gabriel, you got it right. It must be vertical. Good. How do we know that? Well, remember VOOCs, every vertical line has X is equal to something. And when we go back up here, you can see that all of our vertical lines had an equation where it was X is equal to something. So anytime you have an equation with just the letter X, you know it's going to be vertical. How about the next one? Y plus 7 is equal to 0. Vertical, horizontal, or oblique? That is going to be horizontal. Good. How about the next one? 0 is equal to X minus 3Y. That's going to be oblique. Yep. The next one is 2x is equal to 5. It only has an X, so it's only going through the X axis. And it's going to be vertical. Good. And then, you know, it doesn't matter how complicated the equation is. You just look at what letter it is, and there's only a Y in there. 2 bracket Y minus 3 is equal to 0. So what do you think? That is going to be horizontal. Excellent. All right, for the next one, it says state the slope of each line. So what we're going to do first is we're going to, actually the same questions as above, kind of, not all of them are the same. The first 3 are the same. So for the first one, we know it's a vertical line. What kind of slope will a vertical line have? Will it have a 0 slope or undefined? Yep, it's going to be undefined. So I'm just going to write UND to show that it is undefined. How about question B? It has only the letter Y, so we know it's horizontal. If it's a horizontal line, is it a 0 slope or an undefined slope? Yeah, and I'm just going to write the word 0 just so we don't confuse it with O for oblique. Okay, the next one it's interesting because it's not a horizontal line or it's an oblique line. So how can we figure out the slope of this? Well, what we need to do is we need to change it to y is equal to mx plus b form. So remember before the break, we learned about this form. And when we change it to this form, we can just read off the x. So to change that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the negative 3y to the other side of the equation. And it's going to become 3y is equal to x. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So y is going to be equal to just x over 3, which is the same thing as 1 over 3x. So what do you guys think is the slope in this question? This question's kind of like saying, I guess I wrote it a little bit too messy. Maybe I'll just change it to 1 over 3x plus 0. So the slope would be, you just read the number in front of the x, and it would just be 1 over 3. Thanks, Gabriel. Yeah. All right, how about question D? D is easier. It's already in y is equal to mx plus b form. So what is the slope in that equation? What do you guys think? Yep, Aberami, you got it right. And how did you figure that out? Well, you just look at whatever the x is, and the number in front of it is a 3. For question 2, go ahead and rearrange it so it's y is equal to mx plus b. I'll do the same on the side over here, and we can see if we get the same answer. So I'll just move this question over here. But this is a good question to help us practice that whole y is equal to mx plus b stuff. So I'm going to move the 2x over to the other side. I'm going to divide every single thing by 5. Oh, I forgot the x. So I'm going to keep going. So I rearranged it. I got y is equal to negative 2 over 5x plus 2. And so our slope here is just going to be negative 2 over 5. Really, questions A and B are the new material, like figuring out horizontal, vertical. Questions C, D, and E we have done before, so it was more there for review. Okay, let's keep going. Question number 3. Name 3 points on each line. All right, so this is kind of like the homework question I had given you guys, and I had said that it's going to be a challenge. Now we can figure it out. X minus 5 is equal to 0. As soon as you see an equation where it only has an X or a Y, I always recommend sketching it out and seeing what it looks like. So for this question, I know if I rearrange it, it's going to be X is equal to 5. So you always want to rearrange it so X is equal to something or Y is equal to something. And that means if I were to draw this line, it would be going through the x-axis at the number 5. So let's say 5 is like somewhere over here, and that's the x-axis. So I am going to draw my line to look like this. Am I going to struggle with this? Probably. Imagine that that is a perfectly straight vertical line. There we go. Okay, so this line right here is x is equal to 5. Now, the question says name 3 points on each line. We know on this line, every single one of our x's has to be 5, right? Because you're not going anywhere else horizontally. So this is going to be x is equal to 5, x is equal to 5, x is equal to 5. And then for your y values, you can literally pick any other number you want. You could like anything in the world and it would still be fine. You could pick, sure, y is equal to 7. You could pick y is equal to negative 1,000. You could pick y is equal to 2 million. I'm just going to keep it easy and write 200. Because every single, like if I were to write the coordinates, this would be 5, 0, 5, 1, 5, 2, 5, 3. And this line goes on forever and ever. So it covers every single y value. And you just need to know that your x values have to be 5. Abrami, for that previous question, the slope would be -2/5 because that whole fraction is in front of the x. Okay, I'll try the next one. So for this one, if I were to rearrange it, I would get y is equal to -7. That means it's going through the y-axis at -7. So if I were to just sketch it out, it would look somewhere, it would be like somewhere approximately there. This line is going through the y-axis, and I'm assuming like -7 is approximately there. So now in this question, if y is equal to -7, it means every single y value is -7. And for my x value, I could pick anything in the world because it's going to cover everything. I could put -1, I could put 10, I could put 50. So be creative with the x's. You can put anything you want. Okay, the last one, y is equal to 3x plus 5. It's not as easy as it seems. How would we do this question? Well, this is going to be related to what we did yesterday. Remember when we made our table of values? For this question, we have to make a table of values. They didn't tell us any x values, so really, you can pick anything you want. I'm going to keep it super simple. I'm going to pick -1, 0, and 1. Because why use big numbers when you can use small numbers, especially if they're not telling you? So -1, 0, and 1. And I'll just show the work maybe on the side. So y is equal to 3 times -1 plus 5. And that is just going to be -3 plus 5, which is going to be equal to 2. For the next one, it's going to be y is equal to 3 times 0 plus 5, which is just going to be 5. I have an extra bracket there. And the last one is going to be y is equal to 3 times 1 plus 5. Now you might have slightly different answers if you pick different x values. So completely up to you what you want to pick. And then you would just plot this. And we're just being approximate right now, so it doesn't have to be super, super accurate. But let's say -1, 2 is like here, 0, 5 is like there, and 1, 8 is like there. This line is looking like this. And I just approximated my values there on the sketch. Any questions so far? We have one last question, and then we'll take a short break. Okay, so no questions. Let's keep going. Last question is more of the same stuff. It says find the equation for each of the following in slope intercept. So we want all of our answers to be in y is equal to mx plus b form. And they're all about vertical and horizontal lines. So for a question like this, I recommend you sketch it out because it just helps you. It's much easier to visualize when it's sketched out. So I'm just going to draw a teeny tiny little Cartesian plane here. So for this question, it says a vertical line that's going through 4, 0. So I'm just going to estimate where 4, 0 would be. I know 4 is somewhere here, and 0 means you're not going up or down. So it's really passing through this point right here, and it's a vertical line. So it's going to look like this. Remember Hoy and Vooks. It's a vertical line. That means it's undefined. The slope is undefined. Anyone want to guess what the equation for this would be? Think back to Vooks, V-U-X. It's going through the x-axis, but what number is it going through? What do you guys think? Wrong guesses are okay too. X is equal to 4. Thank you. That is correct. All right, next question. It says a horizontal line going through 3, 5. So I see the word horizontal, which means I need to sketch it out because I'm not sure what it's gonna, we can't use actual calculations or anything for this. We have to just draw a picture and see what's happening. So it's a 3, 5 would be, let's say, approximately here, like you go 3 across and then you go 5 over. If you want, you can also write in the numbers. So this is a 3 and this is my 5. And that point is 3, 5. It's a horizontal line, so I'm going to be going side to side. Something that looks like this. Okay, and I'm just going to erase that little teeny tiny 5 just so it doesn't get in the way. But just know it's going through the number 5. We know this is a horizontal line. Remember, voy, it's a 0 slope. What do you think the equation for this would be? What do you guys think? Think about what axis it's going through, which is a y, and what number it's going through. Good job, Zara. You got it right. It's going through the y-axis, and I just erased the number 5 so that you could see the line clearly, but the number it's going through is the number 5. So the equation would be y is equal to 5. All right, 2 more questions. What's the deal with this one? Well, it's the same thing. They tell you the slope is 0 for this question. So I think about my acronyms, and I realize that if it's a 0 slope, let's see what I haven't used. I haven't used blue yet. If it's a 0 slope, then I know I'm dealing with HOY. So really, this question is telling me that I have a horizontal line going through the point -4, 7. All right, using that information, let's go ahead and draw a little grid right here and do the same thing we've been doing in the previous questions. So it's going through -4, 7. So -4 is approximately here and 7 is approximately there. So that means my point is going to be somewhere here. And because the slope is 0, it means it has to be a horizontal line. So I'm going to draw my horizontal line this way. And I'm going to cheat and I'm going to move my dot over because it's probably easier to do that. So the dot is going to be there. Anyone want to guess as to what this equation would be? So HOY, hoy. Think about what axis it's going through, X or Y, and think about, did I sign off there for a second? I feel like I signed off or something weird happened. I don't know. Y is equal to 7 is correct. Last question. We have a point going through 5, 12, and the slope is undefined. All right, so as soon as I see undefined, I know I can't use any sort of math to do this. I'm gonna have to draw a picture. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my axes. Undefined reminds me of the letters VOOX, and it's going to be VUX. So U stands for undefined. This is going to be a vertical line. Let's sketch out where it's going to be. This is the number 5. And I'm going to say this is the number 12 right here. And it's a vertical line. So it's going to actually be going through that number 5. All right, the last one. Anyone want to tell me what the answer would be? Yep, VOOX. So vertical line, undefined slope. It's going through the x-axis. I kind of covered up what number it's going through, but what do you guys think the equation is? Abraham, you got it right. It's going to be x is equal to 5. Good job. Okay, lots of good practice with vertical and horizontal lines. Let me tell you your textbook questions you're going to try. So they're written right over here. You're going to do page 418, numbers 1 to 42 even, and then 50 to 55 all, and we'll take up anything you're having trouble with. And also there's handout E, which is another one of these coloring activities. So I'll go over this one. Answer each question and circle the correct choice. Each answer has a color. After you finish all the questions, color the picture. Because you know what? What's more enjoyable and a better mental health activity than coloring? Am I right? I can't remember if it was this class like coloring. I think it's my grade 10. You guys don't mind coloring, right? All right, so let's do the first one together. In this question, find the slope of the graph, then write an equation. So it's kind of hard to see, but I can see that I have a line right over there, and it's going through the y-axis, and it's going through the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going through the number y is equal to 5. And if it is a horizontal line going through y, I know that the slope is going to be 0, right? Horizontal line, 0 slope, y is equal to 5. So which one of those does this match? It matches this one over here, y is equal to 5, 0. And so what you're going to do is you're going to remember the number. So every one is going to be colored a yellow. Okay, I'm going to say the coloring part is obviously optional, but if you like to do that, do it. This part is not optional, so I want everyone to try these questions, and I have already posted the solutions on Brightspace. So once you're done figuring out what they are, just check your work. And like I said, if you don't want to color, you don't have to.